Drums are split into 4 channels. You got the kick, you got the snare, the tom, and the hats. Kick, snare, tom, hats. And as you can see, I've lovely color-coded each and every one of these channels. Each one has a different sound to it. The kick is a little bit more lo-fi. I've put a slight bit rate reduction on it simply to give it a little bit of a crunch on the top end of the kick. It is run through a saturator, and then through a reverb, through a compressor, and finally through an EQ that I use to cut out the mid and the very low end of the kick in terms of frequencies. Snare drum being passed through, make sure that I cut out all the lower ends of the snare. I don't want that interfering with the kick. Ferric TDS, in this case, is my saturator that I use. It's really good for boosting things. It gives it kind of a gritty sound. Almost like my voice tonight. Valhalla Ubermod is a chorus. In this case, I really enjoy the Valhalla stuff. Got it on 2-tap mode for most of these, simply because anything higher than 2-tap tends to sound a little bit strange for percussive stuff. Got a 50-50 split, dry and wet, with a 5-second delay or 5-second decay on this 1980s chamber vintage reverb. Tom here is going through a nasty delay, another awesome free delay. It's just on the precipice of becoming, a complete feedback loop. Makes it ring out nicely. Ubermod again for a nice chorus. And of course, vintage verb working in 1980s preset. This is a little bit longer, although slightly less wet in this mix. Of note, the kick is side chaining just about every channel here. Snare side chaining a couple of select channels that needed to be side chained. I don't believe there are any other side chains present in this. We also have the hats are fed through a Ferric TDS as well. We cut out the lows and a little bit of the mid-high, and then pass all of that through a Valhalla vintage verb. This is, of course, I think the highest mix in terms of reverb. Cut out the bass entirely, raised the high cut a little bit. Finally, we have the alternate drums, which in this case I believe is a Retromine. There it is. Retromine, old kind of 80s analog drum synth emulator. Really good for those kind of CR78 sounds that a lot of people seem to like. So running that through basic compression, running it through a chorus as per usual, running that through a delay again, through a reverb, and then having compression side chain from 1 and 2, which is kick and snare. Okay, moving on, we got all of the channels here. These are all MIDI outs. Each MIDI out goes through either port 0 or port 1, which is 0 is my Akai EIE, and 1 is my MIDI Sport Uno, if memory serves correct. I haven't actually looked back there in a while. So in this case, we have 2 chains. The first chain goes through the Matrix 1000 first, and that is then passed through the K4R, which is then passed off to the K2000, then to the TG77 through the K1M, DW8000, DX7, and then finally into the MS-20, which unfortunately does not have MIDI through, which is a real pain in the butt. The JX10 is operating on its own MIDI circuit because it replaced the JX3P, which I had to operate on its own MIDI circuit, seeing as the JX3P does not have very good MIDI implementation, and it was stuck in Omni mode permanently, which was not fun. So this is kind of taking fill of this JX3P since I sold it. It's a wonderful synthesizer, so I'll go through and I'll tell you a little bit about each synth real quick. The Korg MS-20 Mini is one of my favorite analog synthesizers. It is a monophonic 2 oscillator, resonant, low pass, and high pass filtered synthesizer, based on the older design, the MS-20 non-Mini in this case, designed by Korg in the late 70s, if memory serves correct. Wonderful little monosynth, very fat, very thick, a little bit harsh, but I enjoy that, especially for the sort of music that you're going to hear in this case. It is a wonderful little monosynth, that's for damn sure. Moving on, we have the K2000 RS. The K2000 RS is the rack mount sampling version of the K2000 keyboard. The K2000 itself is a digital synthesizer. It uses what's known as the VAST, or Vast Synthesis Architecture. In this case, the Vast Synthesis Architecture is a combination of various algorithms combined into what are known as layers, and there are about 3 layers per patch. You can think of a layer as an oscillator. The algorithm just kind of decides where the actual tones are routed through. You can almost think of it as a digital modular synthesizer, I think it's been referred to in the past. Wonderful synthesizer, very, very unique, that's for sure. You can get some bizarre sounds out of that one. Moving on, I have K2000 split into 2 channels actually at the moment, channel 2 and channel 5. Channel 2 generally handles a piano patch that I quite like, and channel 5 tends to handle one of my custom presets. In this case, actually, K2000 RS channel 5 is operating on a Fantasia emulation preset, emulating the Roland D50's preset of the same name. And then we have the Matrix 1000 by Oberheim. The Matrix 1000 is a 6-voice polysynth analog with 2 oscillators per voice, a filter, an amplifier for voice, 2 LFOs per voice, a bunch of other neat little gimmicks, and it's all in a 1U rack. Really a wonderful synthesizer, very warm sounding for sure, based on the Matrix 6 of the same line. K1M by Kawai is an additive digital synthesizer desktop module. Got a little joystick for blending sounds. You have 4 sound sources which are then combined into a single sound. In this case, this does not have filters. However, the K4R, which I'll get to in a moment, does. Next up is the Korg DW8000. The DW8000 is a digital analog hybrid synthesizer. Seeing as Yamaha had not quite licensed out all of the FM technology at the time, Korg decided to respond with their own digital synthesizer. In this case, the DW8000 has digital oscillators, which are samples, 8-bit, of various waveforms, ranging from electric piano sounds to square waves, saw waves, sine waves, etc., and everything in between. That is then routed through analog filters. The standard, I believe, SSM chip, which I can't quite remember the exact specification, but it's quite warm, very good for brass. That's routed then through another analog amplifier, and then finally comes down to a dual digital delay, similar to the DSS-1, which I also have, is not listed here, simply because I'm still working on it. It's not quite ready yet. Next up is the DX7. The DX7 needs no real introduction. It's a Yamaha DX7 6-operator FM synthesizer, 16 voices of what would most likely be called music-destroying goodness. I'm quite partial to the DX7 personally. In this case, it was operating as a saw mono lead. Really good for that too. Super JX10 by Roland is a 12-voice or 6-voice, depending on how you stack the voices, polyphonic analog synthesizer. Got some wonderful oscillators, really fun to layer things, I'll tell you that much. You can either have it as 12 voices with 2 oscillators per voice, or you can have it as 6 voices with essentially 2 oscillators in 2 patches per voice for a total of 4 oscillators per voice. You can make some really fat sounds with that. Great for pads, really good for pads. The Kawai K4R, similar to the K1M, but not quite the same. Same edit interface, more or less, but in this case it has a very unique, almost cult classic, digital, resonant, low-pass filter. Wonderful sounds from this, very warm, surprisingly, very kind of buzzy and warm for a digital synthesizer, but it is something I have been searching for a long time, and I'm damn pleased to have it. Now, moving on to the song, looking at it, I have a small introductory period here where I have some city sounds playing alongside, I believe, the MS-20 with a small bass sweep, and the DW8000 with a warble pad that I made for a song, about 2-3 months back now, I think. I've also got a police siren that I have manually Doppler tracked. Pitching up and down as it bends from left ear to right ear, or in this case I think from right ear to left ear? No, from left ear to right ear, I am correct. I've also got some wind sounds in the background coming courtesy of this here. I honestly cannot remember who made this, so I'm going to say Google Nature VST or Wind VST or Rain VST, and I believe he is the first result that you will ever find. Let's see here. Moving on, you have a slight noise sweep courtesy of Triple Oscillator. As per usual, I love Triple Oscillator. Good synth. You have a little noise sweep accompanied by a reverse cymbal through here, which leads into the main beat drop with the MS-20, the K4R, and the Lindrum sounds. K4R establishes the melody, MS-20 does its little bass thing. Further on, you have the JX-10 coming on strings, the DW-8000 comes in on 80s brass, and the Matrix 1000 comes in on a squelch harp. So if we want to listen to that here, we have the beginning here. And then moving forward a little bit, we have the introduction of the rest of it. Individually, the Matrix 1000, the JX-10, and the DW-8000. Interesting with the Matrix 1000 is it's actually currently being panned back and forth by a Pancake, one of my favorite auto panners. Let's see here. Every time you see a reverse cymbal, that's actually going into a different section. In the case of here, we actually have it as a where we have a sudden tempo change, I believe. I can actually play that. Unfortunately, I can't play the whole thing. Or I can't play directly on the tempo change simply because the way that heavy samples laid out, it'll freak out if this is the tempo automation here. See, we get a little noise sweep as it starts getting faster and faster and faster and faster. God, I hope I like the sound. Oh, I did. It's all frantic, blah, 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 blah. Make sure I reset that. There we go. So that continues, gets really insane. A little bit of a key change right here, accompanied by the DX7 solo here. That then breaks off, the tempo returns back to normal, and finally you have the return to the main theme. The DX7 picks up the main theme established by the K4R, and I go from there. Apart from that, I don't think there's anything really interesting to note. Automation-wise, it's pretty straightforward. Just filter cutoff for the noise filter here, and the filtered noise here for the sweeps. You have a master volume. I just kind of faded out at the end because I couldn't think of a good way to end it. And then this little shimmer here actually goes to the DX7 shimmer here. That triggers at the end of the DX7 solo, and that will fade out the DX7. Apart from that, though, I can't see much else. So I think I will just go ahead and hit play and let you listen to it. thank you for sitting through this horrible commentary. I generally don't do things like this, but hey, this is a pretty big song, I have to admit. It's certainly no joke. I'm pretty proud of this one, so I wanted to share it with you. If you wanted to just listen to the music, that's fine by me. Go ahead and listen to it on SoundCloud, Bandcamp, wherever the hell I stick this thing. God only knows. So, I hope you enjoyed, and I don't know, maybe I'll do this again sometime. Probably not, though. Let's be frank here. I'm lazy.